Are you a firefighter?
I'm not a firefighter.
Mr.
but
Ring,
I've
are you a
spoken to
firefighter?
many
Mr. Ring,
firefighters
it's
about
just a
this
yes or no question. Mr. Ring, are you a firefighter?
No.
All right, Mr. Greenhow, are you a firefighter?
I'm not a firefighter.
The
Are you a firefighter?
The northern part of my district was evacuated. I've talked to numerous firefighters. I've visited the intensive damage. I've had multiple briefings from firefighters, first responders, and fire chiefs. This is what they told me. The reason these fires in Southern California spread so quickly, caused so much damage, was because of Santa Ana winds that reached unprecedented gusts of 100 miles per hour. Gusts so high that helicopters and the airplanes could not fly. Also because of very low relative humidity and the driest conditions in California history. None of the firefighters said it was about overregulation or homeless people or the Delta spelt fish or the timber harvest or voter ID laws. So shame on anyone who is exploiting the pain and suffering of disaster victims to jam through partisan ideological policies. We should get disaster aid to these disaster victims now without conditions, just like we treat every other disaster victim across America. We just gave aid this past December to South Carolina, Florida, Oklahoma. The Democrats say, hey, we want you to do better on climate change policies in your state. No, we just gave that aid because these are Americans who are suffering. So do not exploit them. I yield back. Our gentleman from Arizona on the other side of the aisle gave away the game today when he said why he wanted the audio transcript.
We need the audio. Now let me explain why. Because your attorney also said that you did alter the transcript, and they said it was filler words, repeat words, and, I. But you know what? We don't know whether the blank, he said there were blank times where there was silence. We don't know whether those were 1 minute long, 2 minutes long. We don't know if he sputtered for and, because those were edited out. We do not know whether this supports and substantiates Mr. Herr's findings.
He said we wouldn't know if Joe Biden had said and. So I just want to ask you this question. Special Counsel Robert Hur said that this transcript was accurate. The written transcript was an accurate rendition of the audio transcript, correct? Except for some stutters.
Yes.
Okay. So what the gentleman from Arizona wants is that transcript audio with the and. Because Joe Biden stutters. He's had a stuttering problem his entire life. He overcame stuttering. He was made fun of in school, and he overcame this disability to become president of the United States, a leader of the free world. And it is despicable that my Republican colleagues want to go after him for his stuttering problem. They should apologize, and I yield. Trump advisor Roger Stone was convicted in a federal court, correct?
That's my recollection.
Trump donor Elliot Brady was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Also my recollection.
The Attorney General at the time for those two convictions was Bill Barr. Which president nominated Bill Barr for Attorney General?
President Trump.
Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Yes.
Trump's former deputy campaign manager, Mr. Gates, was convicted in a federal court, correct?
That's my recollection.
Trump's campaign foreign policy advisor, George Papadopoulos, was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Yes, I think he pled guilty, yes.
The Attorney General at the time of those three cases was Jeff Sessions. Which president nominated Jeff Sessions for Attorney General?
President Trump.
All of these folks were convicted under the administrations of three separate Republican attorneys general. It is not the fault of the FBI that Donald Trump surrounded himself with criminals. Donald Trump brought that upon himself.
Special Counsel Robert Hur stated on page 1 of his report, quote, our investigation uncovered evidence that President Biden willfully retained and disclosed classified materials after his vice presidency when he was a private citizen. Joe Biden not only kept information he wasn't allowed to keep, he shared it with people who weren't allowed to see it. To date, Attorney General Garland has failed to produce the audio tapes. To determine whether Special Counsel Hur appropriately carried out justice by not prosecuting, not recommending for prosecution the president, the recordings are necessary. The transcripts alone are not sufficient evidence of the state of the president's memory. Frankly, because the White House has a track record of altering the transcripts. The department has a legal obligation to turn over the requested materials pursuant to the subpoena. Attorney General Garland's willful refusal to comply with our subpoena constitutes contempt of Congress.
It is a height of hypocrisy for the chairman of this committee to try to enforce a contempt subpoena against Merrick Garland when this chairman himself ignored a bipartisan congressional subpoena. Now, I've been to a number of proceedings in my time in Congress and in the state legislature that have been relatively stupid. But this proceeding goes beyond stupidity. It is a waste of taxpayer resources. Why is that? Because we have the transcript. We have the transcript of the interview between Special Counsel Robert Hur and President Biden. There's no evidence whatsoever that this transcript was made up, that it's fake, that it's been doctored. This transcript was produced by Robert Hur's office. Robert Hur was appointed by Donald Trump. He is a Republican appointee. The notion that somehow this transcript is fake is a wild, insane conspiracy.
Today, I'm introducing a new amendment that would prevent President Biden or any president from selling our strategic oil reserves for political reasons. And to imagine that President Biden would say that he would not consider this bill, President Biden is telling America that he doesn't care about our emergency supply or our national security.
I can summarize this debate of the last 2 days into one sentence. Joe Biden lowered your gas prices and Republicans are upset about it. That's what this is about. The U.S. made $4 billion on Joe Biden's action. Republicans always want to say, well, let's run government like a business. Joe Biden did exactly that when he lowered your gas prices and then made a $4 billion profit for the United States of America. So recently, a member of the Republican caucus was asked, a member from Tennessee, what we're going to do to fix school violence, and his answer was,
we're not going to fix it. Criminals are going to be criminals, and my daddy fought in the Second World War, fought in the Pacific, fought the Japanese, and he told me, he said, buddy, he said, if somebody wants to take you out and doesn't mind losing their life, there's not a whole heck of a lot you can do about it.
well, Democrats have a different view. Instead of wasting time on political stunts like H.R. 1, let's pass universal background checks into law. Here's this chart. Shows that under Trump, there were 133,000 border apprehensions in May 2019. And last month, under the Biden administration, there were less than 100,000 border apprehensions. The facts show the southern border is doing better last month than it was under Trump in May 2019. Thank you, Secretary Mayorkas, for your public service. And now the Republicans want to impeach you. Good luck with that one. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The House Judiciary Committee is responsible for helping to ensure the rule of law. Unfortunately, the chairman of this committee himself ignored a bipartisan congressional subpoena. The actions of this chairman have made it harder for congressional committees to get information from witnesses and have hurt the rule of law. Thank you, Attorney General Garland, for your public service. I'm going to ask you a series of simple questions about past concluded cases to get the facts out to American people. The Department of Justice charged Donald Trump's former campaign chairman, Paul Manafort, in a federal court with multiple felonies. Mr. Manafort was convicted in a federal court, correct?
It's my recollection of what the public record discloses.
Public record shows he was convicted in a federal court. The Department of Justice charged Donald Trump's former deputy campaign chairman, Rick Gates, with multiple felonies. Mr. Gates was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Again, that's the best, to my recollection, that's what the public record discloses.
Thank you. The Department of Justice charged Donald Trump's former campaign foreign policy advisor, George Papadopoulos. Mr. Papadopoulos was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Again, that's my best recollection of the public record.
You were not the Attorney General at the time, correct?
I was not, no.
In fact, the Attorney General for those three criminal cases was Jeff Sessions, who was nominated by Donald Trump. The Department of Justice charged Donald Trump's former lawyer, Michael Cohen, with multiple felonies. He was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Again, that's my best recollection of the public record.
You were not the Attorney General at the time, correct?
I was not.
In fact, Michael Cohen had two sets of convictions. The Attorney General for Michael Cohen's second conviction was Matthew Whitaker, who was also appointed by Donald Trump. The Department of Justice charged Roger Stone, who was an advisor to Donald Trump, with multiple felonies. Roger Stone was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Again, my best recollection of the public record.
Yeah. The Department of Justice charged Elliot Brady, who was a fundraiser for Donald Trump. Mr. Brady was convicted in a federal court, correct?
Same answer.
You were not the Attorney General at the time, right?
It was not.
Okay. In fact, the Attorney General for those two criminal cases was Bill Barr, who was nominated by Donald Trump. What these facts show is that the Department of Justice has not been weaponized. We have one Department of Justice that goes after criminals regardless of party affiliation. These Trump associates were convicted under the administration of 3 Republican attorneys general, each of whom was nominated by Donald Trump. Trump's campaign manager, felon. Trump's deputy campaign manager, felon. Trump's foreign policy advisor, felon. Trump's lawyer, felon. Trump's political advisor, felon. Trump's fundraiser, felon. It is not the fault of the Department of Justice that Donald Trump surrounded himself with criminals. Trump brought that upon himself. One of the things that makes America great is we are ruled by the law, not by a cult of personality. I want to thank you, Attorney General Garland and the Department of Justice, for applying the law without fear or favoritism. And I note as we sit here today, the Department of Justice is prosecuting Hunter Biden in a federal court right now. You can't love your country only when the candidate you like wins, and you can't love law and order except when the criminal felon is someone you like. In America, no one is above the law, not the rich, not the powerful, not any former presidents, and certainly none of his criminal felon enablers.
Joe Biden lowered your gas prices last year, and that makes Republicans mad. And how do we know? They said it out loud. The gentlewoman from Georgia earlier this morning just said that Joe Biden lowered your gas prices for political reasons.
President Biden abused his power to sell our oil, reduce gas prices so that the midterm elections would swing Democrats' way. It's a shame to trick the American people just to win an election. There's no reason the president should be able to sell one of our most strategic resources for political gain. Instead, the president should unleash American energy at home. I urge my colleagues to support my amendment and yield back.
You know, I don't care why a president lowers your gas prices. If any president can lower your gas prices, we should support that president's action. And if prices surge later this year, if gas prices surge again, Joe Biden should be able to use the tools at his disposal and lower your gas prices again. We should be giving the president even more flexibility to use the Strategic Petroleum Reserve to lower your gas prices. Joe Biden lowered your gas prices, and Republicans want to keep him from doing that again. We don't want to stop the president from lowering your gas prices. We want Joe Biden to lower your gas prices again if he could do that. But there's another reason this Republican bill is so stupid. Because not only did Joe Biden lower your gas prices, the United States of America made a profit on it. Buy low, sell high. It was brilliant what Joe Biden did. He released the Strategic Petroleum Reserve at prices when gases were high, and that's helped lower the gas prices, and then he refilled it at the lower amount. The U.S. made $4 billion on Joe Biden's action. Republicans always want to say, well, let's run government like a business. Joe Biden did exactly that when he lowered your gas prices and then made a $4 billion profit for the United States of America. Adopt my amendment, which would make this stupid bill better, and then vote against this bill.
If Republicans are going to go low, I am going to punch back. So let's talk about Donald Trump. I agree with the Republican from New Jersey who said if a person cannot stand trial, he should not be president of the United States. Donald Trump has fallen asleep multiple times at his own criminal trial. I am a former prosecutor. I can tell you that is not normal. I think there may be some physical and mental health issues that should be investigated. I'm going to tell you what people in the courtroom are writing about Donald Trump falling asleep. Here's a reporter who has been observing this. One reporter observed, quote, that Donald Trump has nodded off a few times, his mouth going slack and his head drooping onto his chest, end quote. Another reporter said, quote, that Donald Trump slowly dropped his head. His eyes closed, it jerked back upward, he adjusts himself, then his head droops again, he straightens up, leaning back, his head droops for a third time, he shakes his shoulders, eyes closed still, his head drops, end quote. If a person is so weak and feeble, if Donald Trump is so weak and feeble, he cannot stay awake at his own criminal trial, he can't be president of the United States. So instead of going around trying to smear different people, why don't we work on a bipartisan basis on issues that matter to the American people? Like, how about let's do a bipartisan hearing and let's do some bills to fix our broken immigration system. But the Republicans here don't want to do that. They don't want to work on a bipartisan basis. They don't want to fix this. Why? Because Donald Trump told them not to. Well, okay, so how about another issue? Let's talk about high prices. Prices are high. We did get a good report yesterday that inflation has now slowed down. That is good, but prices are still high. Why don't we work on bipartisan basis to look at price gouging? We have companies making record profits. They're gouging consumers. Let's have a hearing on that. Why don't we have a hearing on that? Because Republicans don't want to fix this issue. They want it as a campaign issue. Okay, then how about let's do a topic that isn't a campaign issue. Artificial intelligence has now become prevalent in many places. It could have privacy implications. It could do amazing things. It could also harm us in a variety of ways in terms of bias and so on. Why don't we do a hearing on this in this committee? Why don't we do that? Instead, we're here doing this stupid stuff to try to get audio of a transcript we already have. And it gets even worse than that. There is a second committee. The Oversight Committee is going to do an exact same hearing on this contempt proceeding. Let me just put in that, you know what, at least the chairman of that committee did not ignore a congressional bipartisan subpoena. It might be more appropriate for that committee to do it, and we should end this proceeding right now. I yield back.